The day of the council meeting had arrived. The palace was alive with activity, though much of it was hidden beneath layers of etiquette and quiet observation. Courtiers moved in practiced patterns, guards adjusted their positions, and the queen floated gracefully toward the council chamber, her composure restored but her mind sharp and cautious. Ethan followed closely, his senses alert. Every glance, every gesture, every whispered conversation could signal danger. He had traced the conspirators' movements and neutralized as many of the hidden devices as possible. But one remained, carefully concealed, meant to trigger the queen's emotions at the perfect moment. Valathar entered the chamber, his face calm, his posture confident. He was unaware that Ethan had already mapped out his plan and anticipated his every move. The other council members took their seats, unaware of the human guard quietly observing from a distance. The meeting began with routine discussions, but Ethan noticed the subtle changes almost immediately. Lighting dimmed imperceptibly. Temperature shifted by fractions of a degree, and the faint scent of the earth herb, the same one used in the initial collapse, wafted through the air. Valathar's plan was in motion. Ethan's mind raced. He moved carefully, adjusting controls and masking the signals in real time. The queen's expression remained steady, and she spoke with her usual clarity, unaware that the invisible threat surrounded her. Every manipulation Valathar attempted was countered by Ethan's quick thinking and human intuition. Then came the moment of confrontation. Valathar moved toward a hidden console at the back of the chamber, intending to release a final, undetectable pulse that would overwhelm the queen's senses. Ethan acted instantly. With a swift but quiet motion, he intercepted the controls, neutralizing the pulse before it could trigger the devices. Valathar froze, sensing that something was wrong. His confidence faltered for a brief moment, and Ethan seized the opportunity. Carefully, he maneuvered closer, keeping his actions subtle and unnoticed by the other council members. "You are clever, human," Valathar whispered, almost admiringly, though his eyes betrayed fear. "But you cannot stop everything. You are limited. You do not understand alien perception." Ethan's gaze was steady. "Perhaps not," he replied quietly. "But I understand what you are doing, and I see what the aliens around you cannot. Your manipulation ends here." The tension in the chamber was palpable, though the other council members remained oblivious. Ethan moved with precision, tracing Valathar's network of controls and disabling the remaining devices. The final hidden manipulator went silent, its influence neutralized. The queen's eyes narrowed as she looked directly at Valathar. "You have betrayed your duty and endangered this empire," she said, her voice calm but filled with authority. "Explain yourself." Valathar's composure cracked. He realized that his careful plan had failed and that a human, an outsider, had outsmarted him. He attempted to speak, but Ethan stepped forward, quietly presenting the evidence he had gathered. Decrypted messages, hidden devices, and documentation of the manipulations designed to exploit the queen. The council members gasped, their surprise evident. Valathar tried to deny the accusations, but the proof was undeniable. The queen's eyes burned with quiet fury. "You believed yourself untouchable," she said, "but you underestimated the value of perspective, the power of insight. Your plan is exposed and your influence ends now." Ethan stepped back, watching carefully as the queen asserted her authority. She moved with grace and precision, commanding the chamber with her presence alone. The conspirator was isolated, his network dismantled, and the threat neutralized. Then came the revelation that shocked everyone in the room. The queen's collapse had not been caused entirely by Valathar's manipulations. Ethan had discovered that her own emotions, stress, isolation, and the burden of leadership had made her vulnerable. She had unconsciously allowed herself to be influenced, a human observation that aliens could never have understood. "You see," Ethan said quietly, "your body reacted because your mind was under pressure. No alien technology could detect the subtle signs, but they were real. Your collapse was part manipulation, part natural response to overwhelming responsibility." The Queen looked at him thoughtfully. "I understand now," she said. "Your humanity allows you to perceive what even the most advanced alien senses cannot. You have not only saved me, Ethan, but you have shown this court the value of human insight." Valathar was removed from the chamber, his plot completely unraveled. The council members who had aided him were reprimanded, and security measures were enhanced to prevent such manipulation from occurring again. The Queen's court, once blinded by routine and hierarchy, began to see the power of perspective, intuition, and empathy. Ethan felt a sense of quiet pride. He had acted carefully, relying on his observation skills and human intuition, but the outcome was larger than he had imagined. The Queen, now safe and in full command, acknowledged the unique strength humans could bring to her empire. In the following days, the Queen publicly honored Ethan, elevating him not just as a guard, but as a trusted advisor. His role expanded, beyond protection to include strategic input, bridging human insight and alien governance. The court began to accept the presence of humans as more than mere novelty. They were now seen as allies, capable of influencing decisions in ways technology alone could not. Ethan reflected on the events quietly one evening as he stood on the balcony, overlooking the sprawling space station. The city below glittered with lights. Ships moved silently in orbit, and the vastness of space stretched infinitely beyond. He realized that the Queen's trust, combined with his human perception, had prevented a disaster that could have changed the course of the empire. He understood that the true victory was not just in exposing the conspirator or neutralizing the devices. It was in demonstrating the value of human insight, perspective, and intuition in a galaxy dominated by advanced alien technology. Humans, small and underestimated, could shape the fate of civilizations when they applied their unique abilities. Though Beer, Queen joined him on the balcony, her presence calm but commanding. "Ethan," she said, "you have proven that strength alone does not secure an empire. Insight, observation, and trust are equally powerful. I will ensure that humans are recognized for their contributions from this day forward." Ethan nodded, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. The danger had passed, but the lessons remained. Trust, vigilance, and perspective could change outcomes in ways that brute force or advanced technology could never achieve. And in that quiet moment, Ethan realized that his journey was far from over. The Seraphon Empire was vast, filled with unknown threats and hidden conspiracies. But now he had a place, a purpose, and the trust of the most powerful leader in the galaxy. As the stars glittered in the distance, Ethan made a silent promise. He would continue to protect the Queen, uncover hidden dangers, and prove that humanity, though small and underestimated, could shape the destiny of empires. The days following Valathar's downfall were unlike any Ethan had experienced since arriving in the alien empire. Whispers spread across the Seraphon court, echoing through every hall and chamber. A human guard, someone once dismissed as small, fragile, and out of place, had stopped a plot that even the most advanced alien minds had failed to notice. At first, many aliens reacted with disbelief. How could a single human see what their sensors and analyzers had missed? Yet the evidence was undeniable. The Queen herself had spoken in Ethan's defense, praising his vigilance, his calm judgment, and the perspective that saved her life. The morning after the trial, the Queen summoned Ethan to her private garden chamber. Unlike the grand halls where council members gathered, this place was quiet, filled with luminous alien plants that glowed softly in the air, their light reflecting, like tiny stars on a still lake. The Queen sat upon a carved obsidian seat, her golden robes flowing around her like living fire. She looked less like the ruler of a vast empire and more like a weary woman who had carried too much weight for too long. "Ethan," she began, her voice gentle, "you have done more than protect me. You have opened my eyes to truths I had forgotten. For too long I relied on systems and advisors, blind to the small signs no machine could measure. You saved not only my life but my judgment." Ethan bowed slightly. "I only did my duty, Your Majesty." Her eyes softened. "No, you did far more. A guard protects with strength, you protected with insight. Tell me, Ethan, what do humans see that my kind cannot? Ethan thought for a long moment. We see imperfection as part of life. Machines, alien senses, they search for patterns, perfect logic. But people notice small cracks, little changes, things that don't fit. To us, those are warnings. Sometimes they're opportunities. You fainted not only because of Valathar's manipulations, but because you carried too much stress, too much weight alone. No device could have measured that, but I could see it. The Queen listened in silence, her gaze steady. Then she nodded. Perhaps it is true. Perhaps this is why the galaxy needs humans. You notice what others overlook? From that day, Ethan's role changed. He was no longer only a guard at the Queen's side. He became her human advisor, her watcher in the shadows, the one who could see the invisible threads others missed. And though some resisted the idea of a human in such a position, none could deny the Queen's decision. The Empire moved forward, repairing the fractures caused by Valathar's treachery. But as stability returned, Ethan began to notice something new. Aliens who once ignored him now asked questions. Council members spoke of alliances with humans, of training more guards like him. Ships from Earth were invited to dock openly at Seraphon stations. For the first time, humanity's voice echoed in a galactic empire that had once dismissed them as weak and unimportant. Still, Ethan knew the journey was not over. The Queen's health improved, yet shadows lingered. Threats in a galaxy this vast never truly disappeared. They only waited. One evening, as the suns of the Seraphon homeworld set in glowing colors across the horizon, the Queen stood beside Ethan on a balcony high above the palace. Stars shimmered in the distance and ships moved like fireflies in the void. "You remind me of something I had forgotten," the Queen said quietly. "Leaders are not invincible. We too stumble. Yet, when I fell, you were there to lift me. Not as a subject, but as a friend." Ethan looked at her. "And I'll always be there, Your Majesty. Not because of duty. Because you trusted me when you didn't have to." The Queen smiled, soft, rare, and genuine. "Then perhaps I should trust humanity more than I ever have. One human saved me. Perhaps many humans will help guide us toward a stronger empire." In that moment, Ethan realized the true meaning of his journey. It wasn't only about stopping Valathar or proving himself. It was about showing that humans, ordinary, imperfect, and underestimated, had a place among the stars. A place earned, not by size or strength, but by heart, perspective, and the ability to see the unseen. As the night deepened, the Queen raised her hand toward the stars. "Together, we will build something greater. Not an empire ruled by fear or manipulation, but one strengthened by trust, wisdom, and unity. Ethan, will you stand with me in this vision?" Ethan's answer was simple, but his voice carried the weight of every promise he had made since he first swore to protect her. Always. The stars above seemed to glow brighter, as if the galaxy itself bore witness to the new bond between human and alien, protector and queen, two different beings united by trust. And though Ethan knew the future would bring more challenges, conspiracies, and battles, he was no longer afraid. He had proven what a human could do in a galaxy of giants. He had shown that humanity was not weak, not forgotten, not invisible. Humanity was here. Ethan had never thought of himself as special. He was just a human guard, assigned to protect one of the most important leaders in the galaxy, the alien queen, ruler of the Seraphon Empire. Humans were rare in her court, usually seen as outsiders, or servants. But somehow Ethan had earned a place among the elite guards, not through strength or skill, but because of his calm mind and careful observation. The day began like any other. The grand halls of the space station glittered under artificial sunlight. Towering alien structures made of crystalline metals reflected the light in prismatic colors. The air hummed with the quiet energy of advanced technology, and thousands of alien attendants moved in silent precision. Ethan's eyes scanned the crowd as the Queen entered the central chamber. She floated gracefully above the floor, her translucent robes glowing faintly in the light. Every step she took commanded attention. Her presence alone was enough to quiet the entire room. Today, however, something felt different. A slight hesitation. In her movement, a faint shadow crossing her usually calm eyes. It was almost imperceptible, but Ethan noticed. The ceremony began, and the Queen addressed her council and diplomats from distant star systems. Her voice was melodic yet commanding, and every word carried weight. Ethan watched, vigilant as always, but his mind kept returning to the subtle signs of strain on her face. Suddenly, without warning, the Queen gasped. Her body stiffened and she clutched her chest. Shock rippled through the chamber. Aliens froze, in mid-motion, their multiple eyes widening in panic. Some guards shouted commands in alien tongues, but Ethan moved faster. He sprinted forward, his human reflexes surprisingly quick compared to some of the slower, larger alien guards. "Stay back," one of the alien advisors barked. But Ethan ignored him. He reached the Queen just as her body collapsed to the floor. Her luminous robes pooled around her like liquid light, and the entire chamber fell silent. The alien doctors arrived in moments, hovering over her with medical scanners that projected complex holograms of her anatomy. But despite all their advanced technology, they looked confused. "She is stable?" one muttered in disbelief. "But her vital signs? They are perfect." Ethan frowned. He had seen injuries and illnesses before, but this was different. The Queen's body was fine, almost too fine, yet she had collapsed in full, public view. Something was wrong, and it wasn't physical. He crouched beside her and noticed a subtle tension in her expression, almost as if her mind were struggling against something invisible. It wasn't just her body failing. It was something she couldn't face alone. As the doctors worked, Ethan's gaze swept the room. Courtiers whispered nervously, and some looked guilty. But guilty of what? No one dared approach the Queen, fearing blame or reprisal. Even the most loyal advisors seemed paralyzed. Ethan's instincts told him the answer wouldn't be found in scans or potions. He stood and quietly moved toward the Queen's private chamber, unnoticed amid the chaos. Guards were too busy arguing about the incident, and the doctors were focused entirely on her vitals. He slipped inside and looked around. The room was immaculate, filled with exotic decorations from hundreds of worlds. Crystal vases reflected soft light, and shelves held rare artifacts. But something caught his attention. A small encrypted datapad lying hidden beneath a pillow. It was clearly meant to be secret. He picked it up carefully, feeling the subtle weight of importance. Outside, the Queen was being helped to a levitation bed, still weak but slowly regaining consciousness. Her eyes met Ethan's for a brief moment. There was relief there, a trust that humans, or at least him, could understand something the aliens could not. Ethan pocketed the datapad. He didn't know what secrets it held, but he knew it was connected to her collapse. His mind raced. Why would someone target the Queen in such a subtle way that even the most advanced alien technology couldn't detect it? And why now, when the Empire seemed so stable? He returned to the infirmary, keeping a low profile. The Queen was awake but quiet, listening to her doctors and council members debate endlessly. No one seemed to notice Ethan as he observed everything, recording tiny details in his mind. A guard who seemed too nervous, an advisor who avoided her gaze, a servant who disappeared when she passed by. Hours passed, and the Queen rested in her private quarters. Ethan was assigned a watch outside her door. From this vantage point, he could see the comings and goings of the court, and slowly, a pattern began to form. Some members of her inner circle were hiding something. It wasn't obvious at first, but Ethan's human intuition picked up the irregularities. At night, when the corridors were quieter, he studied the pad. Alien encryption was complex, but he had learned enough from his previous assignments to decode fragments. What he found made his heart race. The Queen's collapse had not been caused by her body failing. It had been triggered externally, a subtle influence designed to exploit her emotions and stress. Someone had engineered it so that no alien doctor could detect it. Ethan leaned back, considering the weight of what he had discovered. The queen had survived, but she was vulnerable in ways her empire did not understand, and now, it seemed, the only person who could help her navigate this threat was a human guard. Him. As he sat there, the glow of the alien city reflecting off the walls, Ethan felt a strange sense of purpose. For the first time in his life, he realized that being human might be the greatest advantage in a galaxy of advanced aliens. Not strength, not technology, but understanding, intuition, and the ability to see what others could not. Tomorrow, the investigation would begin. Tomorrow, secrets hidden for centuries would come to light. But for now, Ethan watched over the alien queen, knowing that the events of this day were only the beginning of a story far larger than any of them could imagine. And in the quiet of the palace, a single thought repeated in his mind. Sometimes the smallest, simplest. The next morning, the palace was quieter than usual. Courtiers moved cautiously, their conversations reduced to whispers. Rumors of the queen's collapse had spread across the empire, yet no one truly understood what had happened. For the first time in centuries, uncertainty had crept into the heart of the Seraphon Empire. Ethan was already awake, standing outside the queen's private chambers, keeping watch. His mind was sharp, focused on the pad he had discovered. Its encrypted messages hinted at secrets far darker than anyone could imagine. Someone had targeted the queen, but why? And how had they managed it without leaving a trace detectable by the most advanced alien medicine? He decided he needed more information. Quietly, he moved through the palace corridors, observing the staff and attendants. Every detail mattered. Every glance, every movement, every hesitation could be a clue. It didn't take long for Ethan to notice patterns. A young aide avoided the queen's chambers entirely, ducking into side corridors whenever the queen's guard approached. An advisor seemed to linger suspiciously near the infirmary, pretending to check on the queen but actually watching other staff members. Even a high-ranking diplomat was acting unusually protective over a small bundle of alien papers. Ethan's human instincts told him these behaviors were connected. The queen's collapse was not natural. Someone in her court had planned it carefully, exploiting weaknesses only a human could detect. He began speaking quietly with attendants he trusted, asking questions in ways that seemed casual. No one suspected him. Humans were still seen as outsiders, often underestimated. Through careful observation, he discovered that messages between certain council members were being erased almost immediately after being sent. The more he looked, the more he realized that a conspiracy was unfolding, hidden in plain sight. Meanwhile, the queen had begun to recover, though she remained pale and quiet. She sat in her chambers listening to her advisors debate endlessly, but she trusted no one completely. She had survived the attack, but the experience had shaken her deeply. The energy of the room felt wrong to her, an invisible weight pressing down, a reminder that danger lingered nearby. Ethan entered her chambers quietly. "Your Majesty," he said softly. "May I speak with you?" The queen's eyes flicked to him, and she nodded slightly. She did not often seek the counsel of humans, yet she felt a strange trust toward him. Perhaps it was because he observed, without judgment, seeing what others could not. "There is something wrong in the palace," Ethan said, keeping his voice calm. "I believe the attack on you was planned, and I think the evidence is still here, hidden in your court." The queen's gaze sharpened. "Do you have proof?" Ethan shook his head. "Not yet, but I can find it. I need time and freedom to investigate." The queen considered him carefully. After a long pause, she said, "Then you shall have it. But be careful, Ethan. Those who plan in shadows are dangerous." Ethan bowed slightly, understanding the weight of her words. The conspirators had acted with precision, knowing their methods could evade alien detection. He had to move carefully, gathering evidence without alerting them. He returned to the corridors, observing and listening. Over the next few days, Ethan began to map out the palace's hidden currents of power. He noted which guards were loyal, which attendants whispered secrets, and which advisors seemed to influence decisions subtly. During one quiet moment, he discovered a small communication hub a place where encrypted messages passed between council members. Edit Ba. Ethan had spent days observing, listening, and decoding. Every corridor, every whisper, every small gesture in the palace added to the puzzle. What he discovered was unsettling. The Queen's collapse had not been a simple accident or even an ordinary medical emergency. Someone had carefully manipulated her surroundings, exploiting her emotions in ways that alien technology could not detect. The human guard understood that this meant the threat was subtle and intelligent. The conspirators had thought themselves invisible. They had relied on the fact that no one would suspect a human could perceive the nuances they had missed. Ethan's first step was to identify the source. Using the decrypted messages from the hidden data pad, he traced a series of unusual communications. Certain council members had exchanged notes and codes that referenced emotional manipulation and stress triggers. One of the advisors, a high-ranking alien named Valathar, appeared repeatedly in the encrypted logs. Valathar had always seemed loyal, polite and measured, but Ethan's human instincts told him otherwise. There was something in Valathar's gaze, a subtle calculation, a quiet pleasure in control, that humans could perceive even when aliens did not recognize it. Ethan decided to investigate further. He needed proof, but the palace was a maze of observation points, cameras, and guards loyal to different factions. Moving without attracting attention required patience and cleverness. He spent hours in shadowed hallways, listening to conversations and observing small, seemingly meaningless gestures that often revealed more than words ever could. During one late-night session, he discovered a hidden alcove behind a tapestry in the palace's west wing. Inside, a small console emitted a faint glow. Ethan approached cautiously and scanned the controls. It was a communication hub, linking Valathar to a network of secret operatives across the station. Messages flowed in coded language, instructions on controlling the Queen's environment and monitoring her stress levels. Ethan's heart raced. He realized that the Queen's collapse had been triggered by carefully orchestrated psychological pressure. Sensors in her private chambers, combined with specific environmental adjustments, had exploited her emotions. Every detail from the lighting to the temperature had been manipulated to increase stress and make her vulnerable. The human guard also discovered something surprising. One of the devices emitted a subtle signal detectable only by human senses. It was a trace of an earth herb, something humans could smell and sense but alien physiology could not detect. Someone had designed the plan assuming only a human could intervene if noticed. Ethan realized the significance immediately. The conspirators had overlooked one possibility. A human could see, sense, and counteract their plan. And now he understood he had a unique advantage. He returned to the Queen's chambers and reported his findings cautiously. "Your Majesty," he said, keeping his voice steady, "the attack was not random. It was carefully planned to manipulate your emotions. I have found the devices controlling your environment and traced the communications. One of your trusted advisors is involved." The Queen listened carefully, absorbing every word. Her expression was unreadable at first, but then a flicker of understanding crossed her face. "Valathar," she said softly, "I have always sensed something off, but I could not identify it." Ethan nodded. "He underestimated humans, Your Majesty. He believed no one could perceive the subtleties he exploited. But I can, and I can stop him before he acts again." The Queen's eyes brightened with a mix of relief and determination. "Then you shall have my permission, Ethan. Act carefully. Use every advantage your humanity provides." The following days were tense. Ethan moved carefully, gathering more evidence. He observed Valathar from a distance, noting his routines, the aides who delivered messages, and the hidden compartments where data and tools were kept. Every step required caution. One wrong move could alert the conspirator and endanger both Ethan and the Queen. One night, Ethan discovered a final piece of the puzzle. Valathar planned to escalate the manipulation during an upcoming council meeting, hoping to force the Queen into a political decision that would destabilize the empire. The timing was precise. Designed to maximize emotional stress and minimize suspicion, Ethan realized he had to act swiftly. He discreetly prepared a countermeasure using the unique human ability to detect the subtle signals from the devices. By neutralizing the emotional triggers, he could prevent the Queen from collapsing again, but it required him to be in the right place at the right time, risking exposure. On the day of the council meeting, Ethan positioned himself near the Queen, observing every movement and listening carefully. The chamber was filled with officials, their faces calm but calculating. Valithar moved smoothly through the room, confident in his plan. Ethan focused on the subtle signs of stress manipulation, slight temperature shifts, altered lighting, and the faint scent of the herb in the air. He countered each factor carefully, adjusting controls and masking the signals that were meant to trigger the Queen's collapse. Every action had to be precise and every second counted. As Valithar reached for a control panel meant to initiate the final phase of the attack, Ethan intervened quietly, neutralizing the signal without attracting attention. The Queen remained steady, unaware of the invisible battle being fought around her. After the meeting, the Queen approached Ethan privately. "You have saved me again," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. "I do not know how you perceive these dangers, but your insight is extraordinary." Ethan shook his head. "Your Majesty, it is simply human observation. I notice what others miss, but this is only the beginning. We must uncover all conspirators and secure the Empire." The Queen nodded solemnly. "Then we act together. Your perspective is invaluable, Ethan. I see now that humanity is not just a curiosity in my court, it is a strength." Ethan felt a surge of pride. For the first time, he understood the true power of his role. He was not just a guard, he was a protector, an observer, and a bridge between human intuition and alien advancement. And now, he had discovered the first major piece of the conspiracy. The hidden threat was real, dangerous, and clever. But Ethan had the advantage of perspective, intuition, and human understanding. He would need all of these skills to navigate the challenges ahead. And the Queen would need him more than ever. In the quiet of the palace that night, Ethan reviewed his notes, mapping every secret movement and every whisper of conspiracy. He knew that the next phase would be the most dangerous yet. Valithar was clever, and his plans had far-reaching consequences. But Ethan was determined. He would uncover the full truth, protect the Queen, and ensure that the Empire survived. And for the first time, Ethan felt that his presence in the Seraphon Empire was not just necessary, it was pivotal. The palace corridors seemed quieter than ever, but Ethan knew better. Silence was often a mask for activity in the Seraphon Empire, where even whispers could hide secrets that threatened empires. He moved cautiously, blending into shadows, observing every minor movement and gesture around him. The Queen had recovered, physically, but the tension in the palace lingered like a fog. Valithar, the conspirator, remained calm and polite in public, yet Ethan sensed a dangerous confidence in him. Every step the human guard took had to be careful. One mistake could expose his investigation and put the Queen's life in jeopardy. Ethan began by gathering intelligence from the staff he trusted. He spoke in quiet tones to attendants, asking questions that seemed casual, but were carefully designed to reveal small truths. Some aides were nervous, while others avoided his gaze entirely. Through these subtle cues, Ethan pieced together a network of those involved in the conspiracy and those who were unaware of it. During his rounds, Ethan noticed a curious pattern. Certain corridors were off-limits at odd hours, and small groups of council members moved in deliberate formations, appearing to communicate silently through gestures. Humans were often dismissed in this environment, underestimated by aliens who relied on technology and memory, but Ethan's observations were precise. He began mapping these movements on a mental chart, connecting the dots that no alien had noticed. One evening, he discovered a small alcove hidden behind a holographic screen. Inside was a secondary communication hub, much smaller than the main network he had found earlier. The alcove held devices similar to those used in the Queen's collapse. Subtle environmental manipulators designed to exploit emotion, invisible to alien sensors but perceptible to a human. Ethan's pulse quickened. This confirmed that Valithar's plan extended far beyond the initial attack. He carefully recorded every detail and returned to the Queen's chambers. "Your Majesty," he said, "I have found more evidence. Valithar is not acting alone. There are devices hidden throughout the palace designed to influence your emotions, your decisions, even your physical responses. They could strike at any moment." The Queen's eyes widened. "I had sensed something, but I could not understand it," she admitted. "These devices, how can we stop them?" Ethan explained his plan. He would systematically locate and neutralize each device, while continuing to observe the conspirators' movements. The human advantage lay in his ability to notice subtle cues that aliens,